Get this going live. Get this going live. All right.
If you intend to record, don't forget to hit the record button too.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Apparently I'm the host for a minute, so there he is. Assuming he's back. You're on mute. You're on mute, TJ.
I'm on mute. All right. We're off to a great start. Yes, it's been a long day. Let me number 15 already. Well, now that I've finally got recording started, welcome to Triple T, number 15 on April 12th, 2022. Rolling right along. I am so glad you guys took the time out of your busy days to join me and the rest of us from all over the globe. I feel so honored to have our friends from down under and places all over the place. Yes, you can tell it's been a long day for me already. But with no ado, I introduce myself. My name is TJ Zebel. I just started calling myself a professional problem solver. With all the different things I've done in my life, I don't really have an identity to any of them anymore. I just fix stuff. And that's why we're here, so we can talk about ways to fix stuff, especially people's, because there's lots of peoples that need fixing. And just to let you guys know, here in Texas, we're having another night of big weather. We're in a tornado watch and a severe thunderstorm watch. So if I blip out, I'm fine. Been through plenty of these, but the power probably didn't do as well. So I will have to double check to make sure that in the event that something happens, Holly will be your amazing co-host and keep everything running as smoothly. And I want to put right on here, congrats to Holly for the amazing training she put on last week in my absence. I am uber proud of her. So yeah, if you guys have any comments from last week that you would like to share that I haven't heard already, even if I have heard them, feel free to let me hear them again, because she deserves to hear them. She did an incredible job. Anybody? Go ahead, Francie.
I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was incredibly interesting, and it was nice to have another different take and a different view of it, so that it kind of opens up even more. So yeah, I feel like I've been using some of the mudras, and wow, that's all I can say.
Thanks, and I'm glad that you're using them too. That's awesome. Thank you.
I'm gonna second that, Holly. It was fantastic. I really, really liked how you pointed out that the universe wants us to play also, or God or source, whatever other energetic component. And I like how you filled in some of the blank spaces that I had. You know, how it does work out for some people, and then how it ends up lining up. So you really shed an amazing light. So bravo. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just want to say one more time too to everybody who was there and for your input. Seriously, you gave such great input that revolutionized the way I see things too. So thank you.
And yes, Bonnie, the recording of it is on my YouTube channel, TSWB Helps. It would be recording number 14. So, just before we got started, because some of you like to jump on nice and early, and I appreciate that, we were discussing lists. Yes, that wasn't a slip of the tongue. We were discussing lists and to-do lists and stuff like that, and the importance of creating to-do lists, not only to remember what your priorities are, because I don't remember, well, I've heard it said by many people that if you have more than 3 priorities, you basically have none. So in the morning, or even the night before, write yourself a list of your top 3 priorities for the next day. 3, and I say 3 or 4, even if you know you've got 37 things that need to get done because you're a normal human being, write down your top 3 or 4. That way you focus on them first. And even if you can get them done in the first hour of the day, the ability to cross them off and celebrate when you do. And I mean, my wife has seen me a couple of times. I scratch something off and I'm just like a kid. I'm like, yay! Because the power inside of the victory pose and the acknowledgement of, yes, I got something done, when that becomes a habit, it allows you to jump out of bed much quicker in the morning because you've got a list that you want to tackle. And you know that when you get those things tackled, you get them done, you get to celebrate. And who doesn't like celebrating? Anybody else got any input that they'd like to share with the group on stuff like that? Now I've go ahead, Francine.
I found that because with the brain injury, I forget everything. I forget what day it is. I even forget my name. Yeah, I know it's bad.
No, hey.
However, if I have the list next, I can think, oh, I've got not sure what to do now. I can actually look at it and think, what do I feel like doing right now? And it's kind of much easier to just pick something, or it's, if you have the list, but also you've written it down, so and then also it kind of works in the background while you're actually doing other stuff. So it's been working for me. I must admit, I'm way more productive. Not that I'm too productive, but but I'm way more productive. It works for me.
We got a hand up. Hello, darling.
Sorry, it's early in the morning, still dragging myself up. My internet's unstable if I'm going wobbly. Just that lists enables the possibility of creative procrastination, which is my thing, where you do your second most horrible job that you've been putting off forever. And you do your second worst job, which kind of gets done much more easily because you're refusing to do the first job. And, or this is for me. And then while you're doing the second most horrible job, without feeling any pain because you're putting off the other one, all the problems for the worst job get sorted out really quickly in your unconscious mind while you're busy doing the second job. I'm early morning speak, sorry.
Go
And then by the time you finished the second worst job, the first job is simple. Instead of taking the 17 hours you thought it would take, it'll only take 20 minutes. And this has happened to me repeated number of times, that things that I really hate, as if I know they're there and I just go and do something else, they'll solve themselves in my unconscious mind and be a far less big job by the time I get to them.
Exactly. Thanks for sharing that. A friend of mine used to call that eat the ugly frog first. And a squirrel ran across the street while we were doing that, and I grabbed it, and it reminded me when of a deal that when I was working for a mechanic when I was very young, he had what are called round to it lists. And when I started bartending and managing bars and restaurants, I had the time for leaning list, is what I jokingly referred to it as, from the saying, if there's time for leaning, there's time for cleaning, because it helped people keep active. Hey, what are you doing? Well, there's nothing to do. I'm like, leaning list. Did you do every single one of those things on there? Because when you get to the last one, then you know what you do? Start over at number one. And it always kept, all of the places I worked at stayed clean. Everything was stocked. Everything looked good, because everybody knew that while you were on the property, you were there to pay for the time that you spent there. And if you're going to spend time and get paid, be productive, because it made the day go much faster. Even if it was slow, we always, our days went by just like that, because we were always active. We were always doing something. And every place that I worked at got high reviews on detail. And you can even do that for your house. You can do it for, job projects. Hey, Elijah. So lists in that fashion, and you can run multiple lists, that these are I'm sick of this list, so I'll go to this list. Trust me, with the property I've got right now, and I jokingly say that I've got my projects cut down to about 18 trillion things left to do. So I've got like 4 or 5 different list areas, and I can bounce back and forth, but it helps me also to keep even those areas prioritized. So anybody else want to chime in on that right now, or we good? Got a couple of quotes that we're going to play with this week. And one of them, I'm going to hit you with a short one quick from a TV show, or a show on Discovery Plus that I found called The Craftsman. If you have any respect for old woodworking and Victorian houses and stuff like that, I will highly endorse this show. Again, it's called The Craftsman. So that old man who in school was made fun of because he couldn't read. He had troubles learning how to read. And so he felt that he was too dumb to really accomplish much. So he went into he was milking cows and doing labor like that. And finally, he fell in love with woodworking and learned the old school traditional ways that are people like him are dwindling in numbers scarily. I mean, just some of the tools that he's using in his shop that looks just totally I mean, his shop looks ancient. You wouldn't even believe that it's still a working shop from the outside. But he's still using tools from the mid 1800s up to the early 1900s. And some of the Victorian knives that he has to cut moldings and stuff, he has the largest collection on the planet now. And some of the profiles that he is the only one that has that profile anymore. But one of his quotes from the show was, "The act of being a good neighbor is one thing. The act of having a good neighbor is another." And yeah, it's a little deep, but basically it's, yeah, you can be a nice neighbor and help everything. But when you know that you have one of those neighbors, it's a different feeling in a way. And I always try to be the neighbor that I want to be, or that I want to have. And the cool part is, with as much as I've moved, I still have old neighbors that are in touch. And that's not to boast or brag or, to impress you, but to impress upon you that being the neighbor that you wish you had does leave an impact. And it doesn't take that much more work to do it. The second one, and I forget where this came from, but pleasure is not happiness. What keeps us suffering is the constant seeking of pleasure. Pleasure creates dopamine. Dopamine is the molecule of more. It is never content. All dopamine wants is more dopamine. It is the primary driver behind most, if not all, addictions. In seeking pleasure, it's not about the pleasure itself, but alleviating the pain of its absence. We need to retrain our brains to desire peace over pleasure, to find joy within challenge, and find happiness within the process of being alive. Now, I know that was a long quote, so I'm going to read it one more time so that you guys can hear exactly what's inside of it. So again, pleasure is not happiness. What keeps us suffering is the constant seeking of pleasure. Pleasure creates dopamine, and dopamine is the molecule of more. It is never content. All that dopamine wants is more dopamine. It is the primary driver behind most, if not all, addictions. In seeking pleasure, it's not about the pleasure itself, but alleviating the pain of its absence. We need to retrain our brains to desire peace over pleasure, to find joy within challenge, and find happiness within the process of being alive. And Elijah, raise your hand.
Yeah, so it's more about the serotonin than the dopamine. Because dopamine is like, if you imagine like a graph, you guys remember graphs, right? In school.
Yeah.
And you have like frequency, which is how often the wave goes, right? And then you have amplitude, which is how high or low the wave goes, right? Dopamine is high amplitude. It's like I want it, I need it, I'm chasing it, I'm getting it, right? Whereas serotonin is high frequency. So it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. But so you think of things like excitement versus being content or happy. Excitement kind of drives you forward, but you can't sustain it for long periods of time. Whereas contentment and happiness and peace, that kind of stuff is high frequency, much more. So serotonin is that stuff, the high frequency stuff that you can sustain for long periods of time, rather than, so I wouldn't want to totally vilify dopamine, because in short bursts, when you need to get moving, it's very good. But unfortunately, we have these things today called smartphones, which, every time you get a notification, that's your hit of dopamine right there. Oh, let me see who gave me a thumbs up on my thing, and who wrote a comment on my thing, and who gave me a like, and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, it works both ways, and people get upset when they get dislikes or unsubscribes, or do you know what I mean, and that kind of thing. So, just wanted to add that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Which also reminded me about a study that had shown about what happens, especially when people are using certain illicit drugs like coke, meth, heroin, things of that nature, where the way it was explained that if your baseline out of 100 is like 30, your average day, blah, 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 you're baselining at 30, and then you try something like coke or meth, and it hits you, get a hit of 90 or 95. The problem is you don't go back to 30. You go to like 25. And now your baseline is lower than it was before. So now you try that substance again, trying to hit that 90, because that was and stuff. Except the next time you try it, you hit 80 instead of 90. And it didn't quite feel the same. But when you come off of that again, now instead of 25, you baseline down at 20. And you keep working that until everybody keeps trying to chase that initial high that they remember. And the low brings them to such a low baseline that it absolutely sucks. And to get them to a full recovery is trying to figure out how, to get them to stop chasing the high, but teach them how to bring their baseline back up to 30 where it was before, or something that they can recognize as an acceptable baseline, whether it be new or the original. And when I saw that, it made a lot of sense to me when you see people that, like, how could that happen to them? They had everything. And all it took was that one hit, that one exposure to that drug that gave them such a rush, gave them that 90. And when they came down, things were never the same again. Nothing felt the same. It wasn't, stuff started aggravating them more than before. And that's where you have to, at least when I understood that, it gave me an easier way of helping these people. Yes, the big why is missing. But for some of them, it wasn't even about the big why. It was being in the wrong place at the wrong time and getting exposed to that big rush. That's why after Ken Guzzo, did his amazing training for smoke cessation and pointing out that nicotine is not an addictive drug, because there are so many different reframes to prove that it's not. It's a habitual drug. Anybody who's ever tried a cigarette for the first time, and I love asking people that come to me for smoke cessation, I'm like, yeah, you remember that back when you had that first cigarette and you grabbed that thing, you sparked her up, and you took that nice big drag, and you were like, this is awesome. I could do this for the rest of my life. Oh yeah, I feel amazing. No, you hawked up a lung and a kidney and a spleen, and you turned green, and some of us threw up, and you're like, oh my God, how did people do that? Yeah, you had to work your body into accepting that poison. When you look at the truly addictive chemicals like coke and meth and heroin, what's the minimum exposure that it takes to get hooked on it? The minimum, one time. I've yet to see one person pick up a cigarette for the very first time, take a big drag, and go immediately into 2-pack a day and can't live without it.
In many ways, that's what makes it more dangerous.
Exactly.
Because it's insidious. You don't feel it happening.
And not only that, you can get them everywhere. And even though it's becoming less socially acceptable, people, when I tell people it's not addictive, and they're like, but the media and everybody says it is, says so right on the pack. I said, yeah, and why do you think they would do that? Makes it a little easier to sell the cure, doesn't it? Here's the gums and the patches and the therapy and this and that and the other things, and here's a vape pen that is all, in fact, ironically, I've cured, Guzzo's going to kick my butt if he ever hears this, so will Dr. David, but I think I've to date cured 5 people in the consult just by pointing out that nicotine is not an addictive chemical, and all of a sudden it clicked in their brain. They wanted to quit bad enough anyway, and they're like, "This really? I'm not addicted. It's just a habit." And they're done. They're good. And I've actually had 2 of the consults that I cured in the consult refer people to me for smoke cessation, which they signed up. So I guess in a way I did get something out of it, but yeah. So there's that one. Any other input on that before I move us on to another one? Yes.
I didn't have an input. I have a question. So I never knew about that cigarettes were not addictive. It's actually the first time I'm hearing this. So when people come for smoke cessations, you just need to let them know that it's not addictive. But then they also need to be open to that, do they?
Well, that's why the first thing that I ask them when they come to me for that is, why do you want to quit smoking? And if they don't give me a good reason for themselves, I won't work with them. Well, my wife, doesn't want me to smoke anymore. And I said, that's the only reason? Yeah, keep smoking. What? Because if it's because of somebody else, it's going to be much, much harder for them to quit. Because it's a habit, and I like asking them, what do you like best about smoking? And it's kind of a trick question on them. They're like, well, what do you mean? Because very few people have ever asked them, what do you like best about smoking? And I smoked for many years. It took me 4 times to quit because I didn't realize that all the stuff that Guzzo teaches.
Well, I tried to stop smoking for many, many years. And one day I managed. I suppose it was actually for myself because I was feeling I had enough. It was.
Yep.
Yeah, so thank you. Actually, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and it was same with me. I remember. I know the exact date that I quit. 666. I saw that date coming up, and I went, "That's a perfect date to send nicotine to hell." And to prepare for it, I smoked an entire pack of cigarettes, one right after the other. That last one tasted so flippin' eh. And when I put that last one out, I was so disgusted and sick of it. I was like, good, done. But I had convinced myself that I couldn't ever touch another cigarette because they were highly addicting. And it was a good mind frame. It kept me away from it long enough to change the habit and stay away from it. But a couple of the reframes that Ken shared that were absolute aha moments. I was bartending back when everybody could smoke in the bar. And the non-smoking section was, here's the non-smoking section and here's the smoking section, which is kind of like the non-peeing section in a pool. And we had staff that was working in this blue haze that didn't smoke. They were not users of nicotine. And when they would take 4, 5, 6 days off, they weren't jonesing for a cigarette. In fact, they felt even better because they weren't walking around in that blue haze of chemical. And then you get women who can be a 2-pack-a-day smoker, find out they're pregnant, shut that shit off right now, and not smoke for the entire pregnancy. And then as soon as baby's cool and maybe they're done breastfeeding, they're out with a friend and their friend is smoking and they're like, let me have a puff. And that anchor hits again. And they're right back and they're like, oh, it's because I'm addicted. Because, again, media and everybody has been saying that nicotine is very highly addictive chemical. No. But thanks for enforcing the narrative. And that's just one example that, or a couple of examples that, yeah, the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, no shit. And you think about people that try to get off of the truly addictive chemicals like meth and coke and heroin. When they quit, what does their body go through? Sometimes fatal withdrawals. When people quit smoking, what do they go through? Justifiable assholeness. I'm quitting smoking. I'm in a bad mood. I hate you. I gotta eat. I gained weight because I quit smoking. You gained weight because you were bored and you didn't find something to fill the habit of putting your hand to your mouth. One of the other examples that Ken gives is you can take somebody who's trying to quit smoking and they've got the patch on and the patch is delivering 5 times the amount of nicotine into their blood system that they normally have. And what are they doing? because it's the habit. And it says right on the patch, avoid smoking while using the patch because of the possibility of overloading your body with nicotine. I'm just going to let that hang out there. I like Fran's idea. I'm addicted to hypnosis. It makes me feel so good. No side effects, no withdrawals. Well, there are withdrawals because I miss y'all when I'm not around you. So
There are side effects. There are very positive side effects. It's like we feel better.
well, and I know that I've said this one before, and I wish I could find the recording of it, and I should look again, where they were having a big panel discussion on hypnosis, and some of the best people in the industry were sitting up on stage, and halfway through, some heckler had to stand up. Hypnosis is nothing more than a placebo. And thank God there was a very quick-witted, smart person up on stage on the panel and went, placebo, placebo. You mean that thing that every drug on the planet is compared to, that has 50% or more effectiveness with zero side effects? That placebo? Wow, what a great endorsement. Thank you. We appreciate you giving us an endorsement like that. Thank you so much. And the heckler's like, that did. Exit stage left. But it did point a good thing. Who cares if it's a placebo or not? Did you get the outcome you were looking for? Yeah. So, any more on that? Or I've got a couple more things I'd like to throw at you, which this one will go right into that. We can't force someone to hear a message they are not ready to receive, but we must never underestimate the power of planting a seed. Which is one of the best things about a good reframe. Because even if a good reframe doesn't change their mind right away, it can be that great little seed. Bing! There, take that, plant it in your argument. Seeds grow well in manure. Just saying. Are we ready for the next one? Yes, we have fun here. I love you guys. This one, it hit me. I had a couple of squirrels collide one morning when I woke up and made me think of this. What speed are dreams done at? Have you ever just woke up and realized that you have like an hour left before you have to get up, and when you fall back asleep, you have like a 4-hour intricate action-packed dream, and then the alarm wakes you up? Did it take the whole hour? And when you're in trance, realize that you can actually have changes at the speed of thought. I don't know if any of you have seen the video or heard of when I did the Wham Bam Grey Room Slam. And that was my little aha moment to where change can be done just like that. especially if you've got a client that already has certain protocols set in place. Once you get that set up, you've got them primed for continuous changes and upgrades and all sorts of fun at the speed of thought. And it even allows you to, do simple reframes by simply asking them stuff like, did you just say that? Well, what else could it be? What would you like instead? And I know you guys have some input on this because it's just open field for play. Who'd like to comment or give some input? Well then, we'll move on to the next one then, because I've got 20 minutes left before I turn it over to you guys. Here's another one that I just saw, I think it was today or yesterday. How would your perception of yourself change if you could view it through the eyes of the people that love you? And with the identity class that I taught a couple of weeks ago, that's part of what I had the students do in a way of, viewing your eyes through a movie. And if you had to step out and watch the movie of yourself, who would play the role of you? And you have to describe yourself in enough detail, enough small detail, so that the talent scout can know who to pick to play your role. And then, just like with the big transformation, boom, something happened. You got bit by a radioactive spider or something, and everything changed. And when all the changes took place, who did you turn into? And how would you describe that new person in enough intricate detail so that the talent scout would know who to pick for the new you? And so that the actor or actress who was going to play your role would know what to do and how to prepare for that role. In essence, knowing that you are the writer, the director, the lead role, the editor, and everything of your movie, what would you change? What would you do? Because I proved it with my students that the vast majority, if not all, of the ingredients that you need for that person are already inside of you. And it was a joy to watch, because one person came in very timid and soft-spoken and shy and small. And on her list of who she wanted to become was larger, heard, confident. And so I asked her if she knew of anybody like that. She's like, well, yeah, I know this person who can be like that. I said, oh, all right, show me what he's like. Well, he would be kind of like, I said, no, don't tell me about him. Show me what he's like. Well, he would come into the room. I went, no, show me. I want to hear it. I want to see it. And all of a sudden, this timid young lady stood up 6 inches taller, spread out, and her timid little voice changed into a booming voice that filled the entire room. And her gestures became loud, and she had that essence, and the energy that came out of her was huge. And all of us in the room were like, and when she got done, she looked around, she's like, what? Like, yeah, you have all the ingredients you need. That person is inside of you. You own all of the ingredients. Yes, Fran.
Creating that sort of a persona is fabulous, but sustaining it when you're not used to it is kind of exhausting after a while. How can you shift one to the other in maybe a more permanent way?
One of the things they said helped the most was I told them, this is a brand new mask, and it's going to be different, remembering how to hold on to it. But you get to decide, is this your main mask, or is it an episodical mask? Is this one that you wear specifically for board meetings? Is this the one that you wear when you go out with your friends? Is this the one that you have to put on to get your family to start respecting you? That one's going to be even heavier when you have to wear it. But I said, understand that we wear masks 100% of the time since conception, not since birth, since conception. And I had a few of them afterwards because I did some follow-up, and they're like, I tried this other mask on, but I feel vulnerable. Well, that's the one you're supposed to wear, because that is the most natural, it is the most transparent, and it is the lightest and least suffocating. We all have those masks, especially with old friends, family members, that try to keep us in the box that they saw us grow up in. Well, how dare you change? No, this is who you are. We know who you are. You're not this person you're trying to be. And so you can decide, do you want to have that fight? Pick your battles. If it's an old friend or a parent or somebody that's not worth the fight, you can put that old mask on. Yes, it's uncomfortable as all get out. It's suffocating and it's toxic. But if you can prepare yourself and let yourself know, I only have to wear this long enough for me to get back into the car and around the block, and then tear that damn mask off and breathe and put on the new one that is who you are supposed to be. And try new stuff on. And if one of the things I told them, if that thin, comfortable, transparent one is scary, coat it with Teflon. That way, when people try to throw feces at you, it just slides off. Put in some fangs. Put a disco ball on top so they can see you shine. Have some glitter cannons. That way, when they're trying to poo-poo on your parade, you can be like, but in the end, make it yours. Make it so much of who you are that it allows you to forget who you used to be to a point. And I say to a point because I don't want you forgetting who you were. I want you to be able to look back and go, that mask isn't comfortable anymore and I don't want to wear it. Yes, Fran?
Can you merge into deep trance identification with this, please?
That's basically kind of what I'm doing.
And maybe some more of the how-to?
Seth, I think Elijah shared an amazing quote from Seth Breitbart, who said to one of the students that was trying to do deep trance, he said, just pretend to be who you want to be. And then after, when you are doing it, stop pretending and just do it. And a great thing, try method acting. Take a class for method acting, take a class for improv. You don't have to have, you're not doing it with the intention of being a Broadway actor, even though if that comes out of it, why not? But what it teaches you is how these actors can play so many different people, which is in essence deep trance identification, which is in essence wearing different masks. Figure out who it is that you want to be and write it down. Not type it down, write it. And if you're big into, well, you can look at the stuff and why is this what I wrote down? Why is that important to me? What are the pros and cons of it? And again, is this going to be my dominant mask or is this an episodical one that I want to try on? I've always wanted to be the fun, loving life of the party. Okay. What's holding you back? Well, it's never been me, and people will look at me, and I'm like, yeah, that's part of being the life of the party. So what you do, find somebody that likes that mask, who you can have fun wearing that mask with, or go alone and go somewhere where nobody knows you and try it on. And I mean, try it on. Have fun. Get out there. It's one of the things that I tell my clients that are looking, for dating stuff. Like, part of, no dating for a year is also so that you have the ability to try on different masks without having that person become attached to that mask. You're just having fun being you. And at the end of the year, usually when you're pushing the envelope that hard for 365 days, a new you will emerge. I know, because that's what I did. Yes, Fran?
I just want to share something that Aaron kindly helped me with, that he helped with a wonderful hypnotic deep trance identification. And instantly, I developed attributes that I'd never had before. And I turned more into the person who I wanted to be instantly. And it was so wonderful. So, sometimes and it was so natural, just jumping into who I wanted to be. It was really, really cool. And Aaron's really good at that stuff.
Awesome. Rock and roll. One of the other metaphors that I used was cooking. You know, how many different ways can you make chili? How many different ways can you make uh, clam chowder? And what if you wanted to put chili beans in your clam chowder? And everybody be like, ew, it's my clam chowder, damn it. It's in my pantry. We have so many ingredients in our pantry that it's hard for us to even fathom. And sometimes we forget that they're there, which is why for some people, transformation is so easy. Because basically all we're doing is going, you do realize that you got, cayenne pepper back there if you wanted to be a little more spicy. I do? Yeah, go back, grab a little bit, sprinkle it in. All of a sudden they're like, ha! I didn't even know I had this in me. Look at that. Woo-hoo! Ah! Where did that come from? It was already in there. You just had to go and grab it, sprinkle it on, give yourself permission to throw. Well, my mother said never add cayenne. It's a little spicy. It's right there. Gets a little. Yeah, but you're not your mom. You may have come from your mom, but you're not her. You are you, and you will always be you. And you can be whoever the hell you want to be, as long as you are not hurting other humans, other life forms. We'll just leave it at that. No hurting puppies or kitties or. But if you're going into your pantry and grabbing ingredients and mixing up a form of you that you haven't been before to make yourself better, you have not only the right, but I believe that you absolutely must go in there and experiment and find out exactly what it is you can become. Why not? Because that old mask of who you were is still there. Believe me, how many of us know? You help somebody design a new mask and they're like, oh, this is so amazing. And you see them 3 days later and they're still wearing the old mask. Well, where's your new mask? Well, I was going to wear it, but I didn't think my mom would like it. Well, then don't wear it around her. But you mean it's not permanent? Well, you just proved to me it's not. But I like the other mask better, the new one. You do? Yeah, I kind of liked it too. It had a little zing to it. It made me feel bubbly inside. I like it. Yeah. So again, what ingredients do you have in your pantry that you've tried on other stuff? Thanks, Bonnie. And what would they do for the people around you? All of a sudden, everybody's sneaking out. They're having private conversations and chats they didn't want us seeing. And that brings us up to my hour. You guys got any input, ahas, epiphanies, commentos that you would like to share? Go ahead, Francine.
I used to kind of enjoy to use the mask where I have that very heavy French speaking accent, especially when I do self-hypnosis, or when I have fun, when I go somewhere nobody knows me, yes, hello, my name is Francine. How are you today?
Yes.
And I found that people receive me totally different from when I have my current accent, which is more like a Luxembourgish accent. This is when I imitate my mother with a, high-pitched French accent. So yeah, I kind of like it. It's like I'm a different person, and I really enjoy it. And it becomes natural. The more you actually play with it, the more automatic it becomes. And so when I'm really struggling with anxiety or anything like that, I normally use it if I'm outside the house, and it actually boosts me. It helps me.
Perfect. And you just squirrel ran across the street, and I grabbed it. And remember, your clothing is also part of the mask. That's the fun part. I can shrink myself down, even though I'm 6'4". I can shrink myself down and walk through public and hide when I want to. And a lot of times I can be quite an introvert. But you put a tuxedo on me and put a microphone in my hand, and it's entertainment time. Let's get out. Let's have some fun. It's rock and roll time. Let me see you on the dance floor, shaking that booty. Woo, woo, woo. And again, part of it is the uniform, which is also why Master Chris Thomas said when he teaches martial arts, he prefers to teach his students in their street clothes instead of a martial arts outfit, because he doesn't want them identifying the training to the clothing. He wants them to remember what they need when they need it, because they will be in street clothes. They won't be in a martial arts outfit. So, yes, Fran.
I was going to follow on with the deep trance identification and my experience with our amazing Aaron, that when Aaron helped me at a time of real crisis in my life and was able to give me access to wisdom that I still believe was not mine. And I still have access to that now, that it was such a powerful experience and instantaneous that when we'd finished the session, I was a transformed and different person of my choosing. And it gave me the superpowers and the super knowledge and the super wisdom that I needed to deal with a particular crisis that was going on at the time. So I really think this is a wonderful process, but the only caveat is that I think you need to be careful if you're taking more than one identity. They've got to be harmonious. You can't have too many opposites, or they kind of don't fit so well together. But he gave me some really powerful ones, and I've been able to use them and make myself 12 foot tall, all 5'2" of me, at times when I've needed, and to absolutely dominate a room full of powerful men with a quiet feminine persona that he gave me. So this stuff is really amazing shit.
It is amazing, and I love it. And one of the things, remember last time we were talking about this, and I brought up, the idea of multiple personality disorder. I'm like, but when does it become a disorder? Because we all have multiple personalities. There's no getting around it. But I'll argue that one ferociously. And I think it's it becomes a disorder when it doesn't serve the public, or it becomes we could self-hurt, or we hurt others. Now you got a disorder. Well, a lot of people try to go in and cure the problem instead of realizing that most of the time the extra personality was created most likely to, well, it was created to serve a purpose, whether to protect the person or to encapsulate an issue, which again is protecting the person. And Dr. David taught me that when you're up against something like that, you deal with each personality as a person, as a different person, a full living entity, and you figure out, why are you here? What do you need? How can we help you? And the person that you're in is safe. And quite often, all of a sudden, the personality goes, oh, well, they're safe? Well, then I guess I don't need to be here anymore. And poof, they disappear. So there's that way of also looking at personalities. And you can do the same with yours. I consider that part of addressing PTSD. A good portion of the time, the PTSD is a recording that's running constant loop on the hard drive, because the person trapped inside of it doesn't realize that the event is over and that we've survived and we're safe. As soon as they do, they're like, oh, well, shit, I don't need to do this anymore. Poof, and it's gone. And there'll be some argument, it takes more than that. Yeah, but, sometimes it doesn't. I've seen people, I know of 3 Vietnam vets who have been dealing with that stuff for a while. And got it cleaned up in under 8 hours of session. So to me, 40 years worth of feces cleaned up in under 8 hours, that's fast enough for me to go, good job. So, anything else we want to go on, or?
TJ, part of what you said just now reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend last night, and it sort of ties back into what you were saying before about the addiction stuff.
Yeah.
Because I pointed out to him, we were talking about in the context of depression, and I pointed out to him that, linguistically, from an NLP perspective, the word depression is a nominalization, meaning that it's a process or a set of behaviors which has been turned into a noun, which sort of makes it then a static thing. And so I kind of pointed out to him, there's a difference. You'll feel the difference between if someone says to you, trying to figure it out now and get it around the right way. Either you have depression or you are depressed, versus you're doing depression.
Yes.
And you can feel the difference. Or as soon as you hear it like that, a part of you is able to then go, oh, well, I'll stop doing that then. And it opens the door. It's just like you said, all of a sudden it can go, oh, and you've got your foot in the door to being able to change a behavior now, instead of a big thing called depression that, what is it, sort of thing. And addiction being exactly the same definition. It's a set of behaviors that people are doing rather than a thing in itself.
Exactly. And there's so much power in that. And even like you pointed out there, even if they're not ready to hear that, you've opened the door and tossed in the seed. Francine?
Yeah, because because the risk, well, maybe not the risk, but I think sometimes when you say that, particularly you said it to, I guess, addiction and depression, but you run the risk of it coming across sounding like you're blaming them, like, can't you see you're doing this to yourself, sort of thing. But it's sort of not, and I've been there as well. And so
Yep.
to think, this is something that I'm doing to myself, and have someone tell me that, it seems like an accusation. But I think, once you do that little reframe of, this isn't an accusation, it's just pointing out that, there's behaviors that we do that reinforce this, and it becomes empowering then. And if you can frame it like that, I think it can be really powerful.
Yeah, you put them back at cause rather than being at effect.
Yeah.
What I found helped me the first time, and that was before I came into found about NLP and all of this, is that instead of saying I am depressed, just not say I am depressed, because then you identify as being depressed. So I found that stopping that was quite a big thing, and that did help a lot.
There you go.
And even if, let's say that was true, I am depressed, you're not only that. I am depressed, I am a mother, I am a sister, I am da 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 da, and you can chunk sideways and kind of open it up to being, well, even if I am that, I'm also resourceful, I'm also this, I'm also creative, I'm also productive. And all of a sudden, just that one little slice, maybe seems a little more controllable or manageable.
Exactly. And one of the ways that I like controlling the accusation or the chance of them taking it personally is through telling stories. Using a short story as here's some of the things that I've heard or seen. Even if you're making the story up so that it fits their narrative, because it's a story, they don't take it as a direct accusation. Also, a lot of the hypnotic induction story entrances of "Have you ever?" "Once upon a time." Those little things, great ways to start the introduction for change. So, good stuff. Anything else?
I guess while I'm talking, to address friends, lovely compliments. By the way, did people hear when Fran told that story? She said something like, he ran a process on me, and I had some great changes. There was a voice shift.
Yep.
That voice, I don't know particularly which one she was talking about. There was one that we did where it was maybe about voice, and that was the voice. It was like a really kind of was it I want to say Eartha Kitt, but it's not. But it was like
I thought of the voice of Solomon, or maybe it was Aphrodite, because she has command, and the posture changes as soon as I bring her in. Everything changes. The voice changes, the posture changes, and I have quiet control.
Yeah.
And men do not know what to do with this. Really, they don't. It absolutely floors them. They don't understand it. And it's so, I have quite a bit to do with a lot of men in meetings, and trying to get your voice heard is really hard when you're female. So the only way to get heard is to be very quiet and have this presence. Really cool. Thank you.
And because I think I said at the time, if you try to do it like them, then it's oppositional. But if you do it in a different way, then they can't oppose it. And the counterpoint to what you said was, not only may they not know what to do with it, I know that's a weird sentence, but maybe they actually like it, Fran.
All I know is that they heard me.
Yeah.
I had this quiet place of command, and I had the room, and I haven't had that before, or not without jumping up and down and banging my fist. So it was a much more pleasant way for everyone.
Well,
And the big picture on Fran's story is, I think what she's realizing is that, and it's coming up from a different angle, but that her greatest strength is also her greatest weakness. Because, if I go like this to Fran, her unconscious mind does that, because she knows she's so suggestible that she'll go into trance if I tell her to do it. But which is why she can have these big shifts, because she can go through a process and she can go, okay, I'll do that. But the flip side is, if she gets a thought in her head, she's just as suggestible the other way. So think on that, Fran.
well, the other thing I was going to add was, just like the story of Marilyn Monroe on the subway with her friend sitting there. Why aren't you being?
It was a reporter.
Huh?
It was a reporter doing an interview.
Oh yeah. Like, how are you not being mobbed?
You want to see Marilyn?
Yeah, you want to see Marilyn? And would that be an instantaneous mask? And now you got to ask yourself, which one was the more real mask? And at what time did it, was Marilyn a persona mask that she threw on? Or was Marilyn the original mask that she enjoyed, that was more her, and she threw on Norma Jean just to keep people from, mom and dad made her wear Norma Jean.
See, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. That's the best
It comes
part.
down to what's appropriate,
Yep.
what's appropriate within the context of what it is I'm trying to achieve right now.
Uh-huh.
Right? So based on my outcome, which persona will help me the most?
And that's the point right there. Is it your dominant mask? Is it an episodical mask?
It's
what do you
almost
want
like planned multi-personality or schizophrenia in a strange, weird sort of way, on demand.
Yes. And again, when you think about those two labels, they're not, you don't see them so much when it's about people that have, like, oh, well, she switches between Mother Teresa and Oprah and they don't care how many great personalities you flip through. It's when one that pops up that is destructive or non-serving, all of a sudden they're like, they've got a disorder. We're gonna have to work on that mask there. That one doesn't fit us.
Did you say a disorder?
Disordered. Yes. Right? Multiple personality. Disordered. Okay, then change the order.
It's kind of like ease.
Yes, exactly.
So if you do find somebody with a difficult personality disorder that they no longer want, what would you do with it? And could I ask a few of you about this?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
TJ, you go first.
TJ, you
Well,
can go first.
in essence, my answer to that is, in essence, people that come to us for help have that. I don't like this mask because when I wear it, I'm a smoker. I don't like this mask because when I wear it, I'm lazy. I don't like, okay, what do you want instead? What is it about that mask, or what is it about what you think you have on you permanently that you no longer want, and what do you want instead? Go to the source of how it got there, figure out why it's there, how it got there, either get rid of it or reframe it, and help them to get what they want instead.
I would think you'd probably need to ask what the benefits of that personality are, what's useful about it. And have you ever reassigned a difficult personality to be a more supportive one? You've said reframe, but is that the same as reassign?
And why was that personality invented in the first place? Well, when I was 15, I get it. So you had a shit year and you've been rehearsing it for 20. I heard a great quote the other day. It was, you didn't have a shit day. You had a bad 15 minutes and you milked it for 10 hours. Well, there's a reframe for you.
Elijah, you're busting to tell us, come on.
I nominate Aaron to go second.
I'll be honest, I didn't quite hear Fran's question, so I'm listening to the answers to know what the context of the conversation is.
Oh, I know that feeling.
If you meet somebody with an undesirable personality, multiple personality, or an undesirable personality, and change that, how would you handle that?
And you want to change it?
If they wanted to change it.
Oh, they wanted to.
If it's causing them problems, they've got this personality or multiple personality, and one of the personalities is causing a great deal of disruption in their life, and they've decided that they would like to change that, but they don't know how. How might you think about that one?
My first instinct is that I would just do it like a parts integration sort of thing. Have the parts talk, or you know how in if you elicit criterion values, you can kind of chunk up to a higher goal and then kind of trick the part and go, oh, well, can you see that what you're doing is actually working against what you want? And the part goes and collapses. And so you could either collapse it, or you could combine it with another part, or depends what the parts are and how many parts there are and what the parts want, pretty much.
And it is a technical term that they teach only in the second year of psychology school.
It's Erickson, I think.
They basically covered it between the two of them. Thank you both, because like now I don't have to say anything. Yeah, they basically covered it. I would want to get to know both of them. You know, I'd say
Both of all of each of you.
Both of all of each of you, and every one of both of you, and both of all of you, and each of both of you, and all of both of each of you, too. Not the band, but you know, you too. Yeah.
Learning.
And I'd want to get to know both of them, and probably make friends with both of them, and ask them each about the other. I'd ask them each about the other. Like, why do you deserve to be the main and them the sidekick and ask the other one, well, why do you deserve to be the main and them the sidekick? And kind of just get to know both of them. And I'd be willing to bet that if you drill down far enough or high far enough, works both ways. They've probably got the same motivation. And then you can kind of have this whole did you know that you could actually help each other instead of fighting each other? And then you probably have it done by now already. And so then it's the same thing that TJ said, the same thing Aaron said, just maybe a slightly different sequence, but basically the same thing. You're going to be parts, you're going to be what's the benefit, where's the secondary gain, where's it's basically the same thing, but just a slightly different sequence.
This is so cool. Thank you.
I don't really like it's not the right way to say it. I prefer when people can't see it coming, right? Because that's what works best on me, is when I don't see the hypnosis coming. And then I'm like, whoa, what was that? So I like to create that experience for other people as well. So, in the beginning, I'm just going to try and get to know them, and they won't really know that it's already started, and by the time they realize it, they'll be so far in and invested that turning back would be so much more hassle than just finishing what we already did. After they told me they wanted to change. Now, that's right.
Won't you?
Okay, everybody come out of trance now.
You can stay there if you want. I don't mind.
Yeah.
You can stay there if you want. You want to daydream a little bit. That's okay.
I'm doing this for the people that are watching the recording going.
Yeah, even they can kind of stay for a little bit. I don't mind. Unless they drive. Listen, we didn't put out the driving notice.
Yeah, what I also find that helps with parts is that if you give them, if you make sure that the person actually starts loving themselves as well, that even if it's a disruptive part, if they start loving it, it becomes, it's much better. It's just simple love works a lot as well.
Makes that uncomfortable bit feel safe as well, so they're much more compliant.
Yeah.
I did a process with someone recently, and the instructions that I gave, because I wanted their analytical mind out of the picture. So I was saying, I don't want you to do anything, just sit with this thing. And I said, if there's anything that, if you feel like your brain is like, I want to do something, the only thing I want you to do is send love to that part that you're focusing on. And it had really good results as far as I can tell.
Are you talking about me, Aaron?
No, but yours was very similar.
Mine was similar to that. That's what I was asking. I had a very good session with Aaron. Was it this past week? I can't even remember. I think it was this past week, right? No, it must have been 2 weeks ago.
It was since the last.
When's the next Aussie meetup, Fran? Is it this weekend?
Yeah.
The next meetup's this coming weekend, yeah.
Must have been last Thursday.
So then it must have been last week, not this week. Last week was great. I had 2 sessions with Lenora, 1 session with Aaron, and I think I've cleaned up pretty well. So, yeah.
You're looking much better.
That is one of the side effects, unfortunately. You get more attention.
Your energy is more clearer, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Clearly, it does.
Yeah.
I love wordplay. It's like one of my favorite things.
I couldn't tell.
Couldn't you? Tell me how you couldn't tell. That's right.
Yes.
Not quite sure.
And if you can't
of
tell,
those knots, if you're not really all that sure when you're not, are you sure
Right.
you're not?
but the knots that are in your brain that you're trying to untie are not the ones that you should be focusing on. Because right now, the left side of your brain is not the right one to use, while the right side gets left right over there. That's right. Leave it behind.
Even my squirrels are sitting in the ditch going,
Because it's so much easier to forget those things that you don't need to know.
and stuff.
I can hear missiles just go, like everybody just goes under.
You know, I mean, like while we were talking just now, right? How many of you were thinking about your car keys? No one. Liar. No one.
No, I'm not a
And
liar.
do you know why? Not you. I was talking about the guilty one that put her hand up, right? And do you know why you weren't thinking about your car keys? Because they weren't relevant, and you didn't need to know them. This is what I meant by it's so much easier when you can forget the things that you don't need to know, and even forget that you forgot them. Because I'm sure the next time they're useful to you, you will remember the keys, where they are, and how to use them, won't you?
What are we
That's
talking
right.
about?
Yes. Have some.
And stuff. All right. What else?
Now you can come out of trance. He said, what else? Now you can come out of trance.
Yeah,
Get out here. You're in your head. Get out here. That's where the news is. The news is not in here. It's not in your imagination. It's not in the future. It's here now.
Can we start a little bit of a conversation about storytelling? Because Elijah told me a really powerful story that went clang for me last week. And
Did I?
You did.
Okay.
It's all right if you can't remember. You did
That's good because I don't need to know it right now. That's probably why.
know it. But storytelling can be so powerful. What are the elements that make it so powerful? Can I have some input from everybody's perspective? I want to learn more.
All right. Who wants to play?
Who wants to go first?
Huh?
It's like deja vu, isn't it? Who wants to go first?
Yeah. Go ahead, Elijah.
No, TJ, you go first.
Well, no, you told the story that went clang.
You know, this whole thing reminds me of something that happened once in one of my classes. When people see, that's how easy it is, Fran. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about once upon a time, and let me tell you a story. But if you want to get really sneaky with it, yeah. Do you know what? That reminds me. And then you're straight into it.
Yep.
Yeah. That one is super disguised. No one expects it. The other one, even sneak. I can't believe I'm outing myself here. Seriously, people, you normally have to pay for this kind of thing. So consider yourselves lucky, right? The other one is suppose for a moment, and then you're into it. Because what does suppose really mean? Well, I say suppose for a moment that you could, and I just carry on. What does it mean? It means suspend what you know and entertain this series of thoughts for a little while, right? It's kind of super sneaky, and people don't really know that it's happening. And you can use pretty much any metaphor, any anecdote, whether it's from your life or from a movie you saw or a book you read or anywhere else, something you witnessed, something someone told you, right? I wouldn't just make one up on the spot because it won't come out as congruent, right?
Yep.
So it should be something based on your experience, but how far and wide you want to tap into your experience, that is a suggestion, is entirely up to you. You know, that's what I would say. A couple of really sneaky ones, suppose, and that reminds me, the two that almost nobody ever sees them coming. If you go back a few episodes, I told a story about horses having eyes on the side of their head and, you know, running your own race and not worrying about other people. I don't know if people remember that one. Or if you haven't, go back and watch the other episodes. Give TJ more views and likes and shares. Do that. Shameless plug, right? But actually, if you listen to that story, I said, you know, TJ, that reminds me. Yeah. And that's how I actually went into it. And nobody sees it coming. Nobody. Yeah. Even if you're trained, you don't see it coming. I don't see them coming when other people say it to me. I don't see it. I'm just there in the moment, like, oh yeah, that's interesting. You know, so that's kind
Can I
of.
ask a follow-up question to that?
No. Yes. Okay, go on. Go on. Only because it's you.
Oh, thank you. What about nested loops? I really struggle with those. Do you have any tricks for like how you, because like I get lost in my own loops. I can't keep track of them. I don't know how to smoothly without really highlighting
So
and doing them.
You make the break really obvious and really like you want to pull the plug hot. You don't just want to, you don't imagine like, you know, you got like a brick in the socket in the wall, right, drawing power, and you can like gently remove it so the device is not plugged in anymore to the electrical socket. You don't want to just pull it out like that. You want to yank it, right? Because when you do that, people's brains go, what the fuck just happened? Sorry, am I allowed to swear on this thing? Is it? Well, I did it now already. So it's it. Floodgates are open. Gonna drop the F-bomb more now, right? So yeah, people are like, what just happened? And then while they're like, wait, is he gonna finish the story? What happened with the thing? Wait, what's he talking about now? And by the time they kind of come back to what you're saying now, they kind of missed the first bit. And so you had an opportunity after you pulled that plug to give some pretty good suggestions that you kind of get away with because nobody really, their brains it's like a pattern interrupt. And you can do them at some really inappropriate moments. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like just really where you would not, you know, where there's no natural segue. There's two ways, right? You could do a natural segue where I could tell a story about how, so one time I was on a train, and this is actually a real story. One time I was on a train, yeah, and we were going to the David Snyder training where I met you, Holly, right, up in Peterborough in UK. And we were on the train and we went past like this farm and there was all these like sheep and stuff. And that reminded me of another time when I was on this other train, making a really long journey, going somewhere. And you see how I just went from one story into another, right? Because that reminds me mid-story. So that's a very smooth transition, right? But you could also have like, so I was on the train and we were on our way to the training, right? And suddenly, as soon as the train started moving, all the adults, they went into their trances. You know, the headphones went in, the laptops came out, and everybody started. And there was this one little girl, maybe about 6 years old, and she was absolutely fascinated by all the things that were passing on the outside, right? And she was like climbing on the table and like trying to see what's out the window on the other side. And her mum was like telling her, no, you can't climb over the other passengers. You have to sit still in your seat. And she said, no. And then do you know what happened last year, right? Last year, when I was trying to do this training, I was trying to figure out. So you see, it's like really abrupt. Yeah, that's yanking. That's yanking when you do the segue to the second loop. And what that does is it's a real strong break state. So what just happened? Yeah. Why is he talking about this now? But if you keep going and don't stop, they'll just keep listening. Right? And if you do it a second time, when you go into the third story, then they'll be like really, especially if you've got like overlapping, it's kind of getting complicated now, but overlapping transition metaphors, you know, so you say something like, It got really cold outside. It was dark. The sun had already gone down. I decided to go for a little walk by the lake. And then when I stepped outside, it was like I was in a whole new world. So it's like a little transition metaphor. It's almost like saying, okay, leave all that stuff behind now. We're going into this new thing, right? So there's all these little bits and bobs. I recommend, if you haven't studied Kenrick Cleveland's work, primo. When it comes to telling stories, when it comes to transitioning, nested loops, suggestions within suggestions, and all that kind of stuff. Really, really, like, he doesn't hold back. You know, I had to listen to it about 26 times, and I still haven't lost it. Seriously, he's that good. That's, you know, and if you want another shameless plug, you could always come and start attending my classes again, Holly. You're always welcome back, you know, and then we'll get into it, you know.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Now someone else go. I went first. That's how you close a loop, right? So I closed the loop, Polly. You see that we went into so many, like, how many nests were there, right? And now I close the loop at the end with the thing that I said in the very beginning, which is, okay, who wants to go first? Which was a deja vu, right? So kind of, in a way, it's easier for everyone to forget what I said. And what that does is relegate it or promote it. You can think of it either way. It can relegate it or it can promote it to unconscious processing. If you're no longer consciously paying attention to it, you'll learn it much quicker, won't you? That's right. Oh, quiet today.
Yes, I noticed. While you were talking about that, brought up another squirrel. How many of you are familiar with the deal 36 questions to build love and rapport? Look it up. There's 36, there's 51. They're questions designed specifically to start deep conversation. And especially when I'm working with clients for relationship stuff, I always recommend these. But I have to teach them how to present them to their partner or whoever they're trying to build the relationship or rapport with. And one of the ways that I have them do that is stories, or, you know, I was at the grocery store today and I overheard these two ladies talking, and one of them brought up this question that just crazy, like, you know, if you could sit down and have supper with anybody ever that has ever existed, alive or dead, real or fictitious, who would you pick to have supper with? And it's questions like this that start a conversation. And why would you? You know, who would you pick and why? There we go. Thank you, Holly. And as you can see, it's questions to fall in love, but it doesn't actually have to be specifically used for that. These are great questions to also find out a person's values and criteria, and to build rapport and relationship, whether it doesn't have to mean, you know, your specific personal other or something like that. And I tell them, you don't have to memorize the entire list. Pick two or three that really hit you and go with them. And the one that I just quoted, that's right out of there. If you could have supper with anybody, real or fictitious, alive or dead, who would you pick and why? And some of the conversations I've had just off of that one question are awesome. So now I'm curious out of you guys. Type in the chat there. If you could have supper with absolutely anybody, who would you have supper with? I'd love to have supper with my mom's father. Just to let him know what, you know. There you go, Aaron. We'll set that up for you.
We've
Wow.
never met in person.
Viktor Frankl, that's a great answer.
Fake. I'm not a real person. You guys are just imagining me.
Well, that's only because we took the red pill, and we're fine with that. How about you, Fran?
So many.
Right?
I want to have supper with all sorts of people.
Who would be first if you could just pick out and have somebody for supper tomorrow night? Who would you pick?
I'm going to need some time to consider if I've only got one person to choose.
No.
If I've got a whole series, I'll choose a whole series.
I'll give you as many as you want, but who would you pick tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
And the cool thing is, like Elijah said, Da Vinci, doesn't matter, you'll be able to converse with them openly, no matter what language or where they're from. Remember, it's real or fictitious, alive or dead. I had one person pick Superman. I'm like,
In that case, Solomon.
see?
Yeah.
And why Solomon?
Because he's given me access to a lot of wisdom that in ways that I wouldn't naturally think of. And he's also a real diplomat, and very effective at managing difficult situations. And he had a lot of difficult situations, not just the recorded or remembered or parable situations. Keeping peace with a lot of diverse views, cultures. The skills are pretty good.
Skills are pretty good.
Yeah, and sometimes confrontational, but the confrontation is thrown back at the people with the confrontation, which is kind of cool.
How do you feel about that now?
How do I feel about that?
Yeah,
I'm
about
very
this
glad
quick
that
little conversation.
I'm very glad that Aaron gave me access to that that wisdom and information in one of the deep trance identification sessions, because it opened up an area of thought, reasoning, and understanding that I wouldn't have otherwise even thought of. It way beyond my normal thinking patterns. And it's fascinating. If I have a problem that I can't solve, all I have to do is reach out and throw it out there, and I'll get Solomon or Aphrodite, if it's more of an Aphrodite problem, to actually come back with a solution that I'd have never thought of, but it's there. And whether you tell me it's me that did it or not, I don't know. I don't care. It's available information that wouldn't have come naturally to me.
Yeah. Did you get the outcome you were looking for? Yes. Then you did it right.
Yeah. So yes, I'd choose Solomon to have supper with, because he's a crafty bugger.
And Fran, Fran, if there was a color or a series of colors connected to having supper with Solomon, what colors would they be?
Desert sand, red desert sand, red desert rock. That sort of ochre red.
Do you guys see how many openings there are for Echo Talk through Magic Questions inside of this stuff? Where and started off with a story using some of the stuff that Elijah brought up for, just, that reminds me of this one time this person asked me this question. Now, it always stuck with me. Alan Watts. Elijah, how come Alan Watts?
When I listen to him, right, I'm totally engrossed. My attention is just right there, and yes, for those of you who saw my, right, and I just, every time he wows me, every time. Sometimes it goes into like a bit too much, obviously, but the few really fond memories I have listening to his lectures, you just think like, I could listen all day. And yeah, it'd be a very interesting meal, it'd be a very interesting conversation. And I'm sure I could ask him a couple good questions and have him talking for hours. I think it would just be a great learning experience. And yeah, just love the way he speaks, love listening to him. I think it would be a very, very good experience.
And here's another little play on that. How much does this set up for deep trance identification? What would you like to ask him? What would you like to obtain from this person? If you could ask them any questions, if you could obtain any information or knowledge from them.
Well, I'd start, so again, still being me, right? I'd start somewhere innocuous, like, do you like spicy food? Let's start with something like that.
Yeah, right.
Right. But eventually, we'd probably get into like Taoism or yoga or, those kind of practices. Where does superstition stop and reality begin? That's a good question. I'd probably ask him. And we'd see what kind of light he would shed on such things. Probably go around the houses chasing squirrels,
Right.
But it's a good thing. Because I'd be entranced listening.
Anybody else we got 8 minis left. And silence.
You have dinner with? Who would you have supper with?
Who? Me?
Lenora. I want to hear Lenora's.
Yeah, Lenora.
I'm going to go straight to the top. I'm just going to go right up to the universe or God or source. And I got questions. I need some answers.
I got questions. I need answer. Actually, Jesus is a very common answer. Even people that consider themselves non-religious. And I'm like, why? Well, I want to see if he's real. I want to ask him. I got questions I want answered. Like, all right, hey, that's the cool part. That's why I throw in there real or fictitious, alive or dead. if it could be anybody that you could sit down, have supper, and converse with.
Holly, what about you?
Well, I mean, I put Viktor Frankl in the chat, but I'm loving the idea of, well, everybody that's been listed going to source sounds pretty awesome too. Like maybe I should change my mind on this.
Why Viktor Frankl?
Well, just when I read his books, there's so much wisdom on every single page, and everything he has to say just blows my mind. I could listen to him all day long.
Talk about state control.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anybody else?
Francine, tell us about who you would choose.
Well, I would probably go for my son, my eldest. I haven't seen him for so long. I miss him. So yeah, he's the first person I loved so much. So there we are, get emotional. So I think that would be him, Xavier. He's my eldest, and I miss him. So
see, and there's the cool part about the question, right there.
Tell us about how special he is, and tell us about.
I don't think I can use words for it. He, not many knows, but I've had kind of a very hard childhood, and I never felt loved. However, he, I don't know, if it wouldn't be for him, I probably wouldn't be around. You know, he's been my rock for over 30 years, and don't get me wrong. I love all my children. I am very lucky. I have, however, the two younger ones live with me, so it's not the same. This is Xavier. I'm very proud because even he didn't have an easy childhood because I had to raise him on my own for a couple of years before I met Simon. However, we've always been very close, and when I was really unwell, he actually used to check on me every day, even if he was far away, through Zoom or through Facebook. The Facebook app, we chat a lot. I think he's an amazing human. That's he has been a drug addict in the past. You know, however, he managed to overcome it, and he's a good person. I'm really proud.
Thank you for sharing that. That's inspirational, and especially the caring that he shares with you. That's beautiful.
Now I want to have supper with him. I just want to meet the dude. I'm like, man, it's okay. He's on my list.
Pretty special, hey?
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's and he's very handy. He's very you give him tools, and even as a kid, he was fixing cars. You know, like those electric cars. He used to take them apart and try and put them back together. And he drives one of those, those yellow vans, the toolboxes, who come and fixes people's car on the road. And he's
I like him even more now.
A nice shining yellow armor.
Yeah. And he's got an Irish accent as well, so which is kind of nice too. Well, we lived in Ireland when he was a teenager, so he's got the Irish accent. Yeah.
This is so cool. I just adore every one of you.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's stuff like this and our ability to share and create this as a recording that I don't know who needed to hear something off of this, but we're we're making it happen and we're putting it out there because we can. And I'm just proud to be a part of it. Thank you. And that brings us all the way up to a few seconds left before the 2-hour mark.
No.
I know. But as my promise to respect your time and everything, and keep these, what do you call them, digestible at an easy rate, for so people don't look at the recording and go, 8 hours. And yes, Elijah, you and I both know that both of us could go for a 10-hour sprint. What do you want to talk about? It's been 10 hours. I know. I've still got about 70 things we could talk about. But
it's so funny you said that, right? Because like I put a recording in the Telegram once, like shared it with everybody, right? And and someone sent me a private message. I saw on the bottom of the recording that it was 8 hours long, but you only posted an hour and a half. Where's the rest of it?
Yeah, right. How do you eat a whale? One bite at a time. All right, kids. Again, I super duper appreciate you guys. Thank you for showing up and making this happen and all the above. I truly adore and love you all. And I will, I suppose I should say, for those of you that have watched the recording or everything, please hit the like button and ring the bell and share this with as many people as you can, just so we can get the word out there. I'm doing this just because I have the ability to, and I want to. If I can help one person, it's been worth my time. So thank you all. See you back here in 7. Take care. Be nice to people.
Before you duck off, TJ, I have to say thank you so much for inadvertently driving me down the pathway of learning more about music. I've found a website that is just what I need. It's called Musical You, and it teaches beginners to professionals and takes everybody back to basics in a whole new way. And I'm learning about music, and voice is one of their main tools as well. So you don't need to be a wonderful singer, but they teach you to sing. And I've discovered I'm not tone deaf, and I've discovered I can hit the pitch, but not prettily yet. But
I am so proud of you, friend. That is awesome.
It's a big commitment of time, but it's so worth it. And it's a wonderful sharing community. So, and they've got lots of live webinars. So I'm burning the candle at both ends, morning and night, and going to the live sessions. And thank you for that. Heaven knows where it's going to lead. I want it to lead to me being able to compose electronic digital music at some point. And in the meantime, I'm having this amazing musical appreciation journey and learning what I never knew. It's like there's a new color of the rainbow for me. Or somebody who's been colorblind all their life suddenly having all this color available. And I'm thinking, holy shamola.
You're right. Yeah, like showing up at the buffet going, wait a minute, there's more than a cheese sandwich? Wow, look at that. There's a whole buffet over there. Yeah.
And it's all your fault.
I'll take the blame. You can spank me later. And I'm so proud of you and what all of you guys are doing in the group down there, again, I know I've said it before, but I will say it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. How far you guys have come from when I met you and what you've been able to do to help other people rise up to levels that they didn't think they had in them. Yay, awesome. That is so cool. So kudos to you guys.
Thanks, TJ. And thank you for your support on all areas. Really appreciate it. Makes a big difference.
You know why I do it?
Because it's you.
Because you're worth it. Spread that with people too. You wouldn't believe how hard it is for some of the people that I work with to accept the fact when I tell them they are worth it. And the look on their face when I first say it, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, no, really. I want you to tell me I am worth it. And you'll hear it in their voice the first time. They're like, I'm worth it. Like that, please. I am worth it. And one of the clients that I worked with last week, remember the shampoo campaign back in the day? It's L'Oreal and I'm worth it. Do you remember that one at all? Well, her name sounds similar to that. And I said, tell me how that, remember some of those ads? How did they go? What did the women look like? What did the women do in the ads? And she goes, well, the women would go, it's L'Oreal and I'm worth it. And I said, good. Instead of saying it's L'Oreal, say I'm, and put your name in it and say it exactly that way. And the energy that came off of her and the look on her face when she got done doing that was worth it. So with your clients, with people that are around you, remind them, because a lot of them have forgotten, they are worth it. And make sure that they realize it and make them say it and make them believe it. And all the people that jumped off are like, was there something I missed? Well, that happens here on Triple T. All right.
Go eat.
Yes. Love you guys.
Thanks, TJ. Bye.
Bye.